Greetings, traveler. I bid you listen closely and enjoy what is to come.
The history of humanity is filled with big questions, but perhaps none are bigger than the one we're tackling today. It's a concept that has built empires and brought them down, inspired breathtaking art, and sparked devastating wars. It's a story not about a being, but about an idea, the idea of God. Before we dive into this incredible journey through time, do me a favor and hit that like button. And if you haven't already, subscribe. It really helps us bring you more stories just like this one. Now imagine yourself tens of thousands of years ago. You're a hunter-gatherer. Your world is a mysterious and often terrifying place. The sun rises and sets, storms gather with frightening force. A hunt is successful or it isn't. Life is fragile. You don't have science to explain these things. So what do you have? You have patterns. You have agency. You hear a rustle in the bushes, and you assume something caused it, a predator or prey. This instinct, this assumption of an unseen agent, is critical for survival. And it's this very same instinct that likely gave birth to the first sparks of belief. Our ancestors began to see agency not just in the bushes, but in the world at large. The storm wasn't just a weather phenomenon. It was the rage of a sky spirit. A successful hunt wasn't just luck. It was a gift from the forest spirit. These early beliefs, known as animism, weren't about a single all-powerful God. The world was alive with countless spirits in rocks, rivers, trees, and animals. Each had its own personality, its own desires. Religion wasn't about worship. It was about negotiation. You'd leave an offering, a piece of your kill, to appease the forest spirit, hoping it would grant you another successful hunt. The next day, as our small bands of hunter-gatherers began to settle down, forming the first agricultural societies, something fascinating happened. Our gods changed with us. Suddenly, we weren't just concerned with the next hunt. We were worried about the next harvest. The spirits of individual trees and rocks became less important than the gods of the sun, the rain, and the earth itself. These were no longer just vague spirits. They started taking on human-like forms and personalities. They had families. They had arguments. They played favorites. Think of the ancient Mesopotamians. They lived between two mighty music rivers, the Tigris and Euphrates, which could bring life-giving water or devastating floods. Naturally, their gods were powerful, unpredictable, and often moody, just like the rivers they depended on. These were polytheistic systems, pantheons of gods, each with a specific job. There was a god for farming, a god for war, a god for love, a god for wisdom. It was like a divine city council running the affairs of the world. This system worked well for a while. It gave people a sense of control and understanding in a chaotic world. But as societies grew into kingdoms and then vast empires, another shift was on the horizon. Managing a pantheon of dozens, sometimes hundreds of gods could get complicated. Which god do you pray to for victory when you have a god of war, a god of strategy, and a god of courage? As empires expanded, they absorbed new peoples with new gods, making the divine realm even more crowded. The priests who acted as the middlemen gained immense power. They were the ones who knew the right rituals, the secret names, the preferred sacrifices for each deity. But then a revolutionary idea started to take root in a few scattered places. What if there weren't many gods? What if there was only one? This idea of monotheism was a radical departure. One of the earliest music and most famous experiments with this was in ancient Egypt with the Pharaoh Act. He declared that all the old gods were false and there was only one true God, On the Sunundus. It was a huge political and religious upheaval. Akhenaten moved the capital, shut down the old temples, and erased the names of the old gods. He was trying to centralize power, both divine and earthly, in himself. His revolution didn't last, though as soon as he died, the old priests restored the pantheon, and Akhenaten was branded a heretic. But the seed of monotheism had been planted. It re-emerged more successfully with a small tribe in the ancient Near East. The Israelites, their journey was different. They didn't start with one universal God. Initially, they practiced something closer to hentheism. They believed other gods existed, but they were bound to worship only their God Yahweh. Music, was their tribal god, their protector, the famous first commandment. You shall have no other gods before me, doesn't deny the existence of other gods. It just forbids their worship. Over centuries of conflict, exile, and suffering, their idea of God evolved. How could their powerful God allow them to be conquered by the Babylonians, whose gods were supposedly weaker? The answer the prophets gave was profound. Yahweh wasn't just Asterisk, their asterisk God. He was the only asterisk God, the God of everyone. The Babylonians weren't powerful because their gods were real. They were simply an instrument of Yahweh's music plan, a tool to punish his chosen people for straying. It transformed God from a local tribal deity into a universal transcendent and moral being. This new God wasn't just powerful, he was G. He cared about justice, compassion, and how people treated one another. This moral dimension was a powerful innovation. This concept of one universal moral God is the foundation of Judaism, and it would give birth to two of the world's largest religions, Christianity and Islam. Christianity took the Jewish God and introduced a radical new element, the idea that God had become human in the form of Jesus Christ. This made God intensely personal. He wasn't just a distant king in heaven. He was a father who had suffered, understood human pain, and offered a direct path to salvation through faith in his son. A few centuries later in Arabia, Islam emerged. It presented itself as a restoration of the pure monotheism of Abraham. The message was simple and powerful. There is no God but God. Allah in Arabic and Muhammad is his messenger. Islam emphasized the absolute oneness of God, rejecting the Christian concept of the Trinity. He is all-powerful, all-knowing, but also all-merciful. The focus was on submission Islam, the will of this one true God. These three Abrahamic music faiths, each with their unique take on the one God, would go on to shape the course of world history. But what about the rest of the world? In places like India, a different path unfolded. The ancient Vedic traditions with their pantheon of gods evolved into the complex tapestry of Hinduism. Here you can find monotheism, polytheism, and even non-theism all coexisting. The idea of Brahman represents the ultimate unchanging reality, a single divine ground of all being. Yet this one reality can be worshipped through millions of different gods and goddesses. Music, like Vishnu, Shiva, and Dabai, who are seen as manifestations of that single ultimate truth. It's a beautifully complex system that allows for immense diversity in belief and practice. Meanwhile, in East Asia, philosophies like Buddhism, Taoism, and Confucianism offer different answers to life's big questions. Early Buddhism, for instance, is non-theistic. It doesn't focus on whether gods exist or not. The central question isn't about pleasing a deity. It's about understanding the nature of suffering and achieving enlightenment nirvana through your own efforts. The focus is internal, not external. So we've traveled from forest spirits to moody river gods, from divine city councils to one universal moral God. But the story doesn't end there. In the last few centuries, especially in the West, another great shift has occurred: the rise of science and secularism. Music. The scientific revolution gave us new ways to explain the world. The storm wasn't an angry God, it was a low-pressure system. Sickness wasn't a divine punishment, it was caused by germs. For many, God was no longer needed to explain the mechanics of the universe. This led to a God of the gaps, where God was only used to explain the things science hadn't figured out yet. And as science explained more and more, that gap got smaller and smaller. This has led to a diversification of belief like never before. Today, some people hold to traditional faith, with others see God not as a literal being in the sky, but as a metaphor for love, a symbol of the universe's mystery, or a psychological concept, a projection of our highest ideals. And of course, many people now find it perfectly logical not to believe in any God at all. So why is this concept, this history of God, so important? Because it isn't just a story about the divine, it's the story of us. The way we conceive of God reflects our societies, our fears, our hopes, and our understanding of the world. It's a mirror to our own evil. The concept of God has given us laws, a moral compass. It's inspired us to build cathedrals that scrape the sky and create music that touches the soul. It has also been used to justify unspeakable atrocities. This idea is arguably the most powerful and influential concept humanity has ever created. It has shaped who we are, for better and for worse. Whether you believe in one God, many gods, or no God at all, Understanding this journey is essential to understanding humanity itself. It's a story that is still being written every day in the hearts and minds of billions of people around the globe. Thank you so much for joining me on this incredible exploration. Remember to like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you don't miss our next journey. See you next.